an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 8. Who is Josh's Soup Fairy? In this episode, y'all, I really thought that we had seen the last of Josh Chan. Not really like the last of him, but like, I really didn't want... I don't want this. I don't want this at all. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. You guys, I watched this episode earlier today, and I didn't get to watch it with Owen, unfortunately, because he had to go to work. But I couldn't resist, after watching the first 2 minutes, turning to him as he was about to walk out the door and saying, I fucking knew it. Those of you who were hanging out with us when we did the live watch of the previous episode, who's the cool girl who's dating Josh, or whatever the title of that one is, when we meet the co-worker at the little work shindig for Paula's husband, Scott, that's his name. I was like, isn't that the girl that he told Paula he almost cheated on her with? I think we've heard about her before. And when he said that, Paula was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. And this episode starts off with some fucking realness here, guys. This is one of those things that is it's so well done overall, the whole way that this goes, where Paula really did fuck up. But that doesn't excuse fucking somebody else. And the combination of that, plus the like rush of the morning and Paula trying to study as she's washing dishes, while the boys are getting their lunches. I love the fact that there's just a half a salami in one of their lunch bags. And she's complimenting him and trying to tell him how great he is and how much she appreciates him in this obvious attempt to smooth over their fight from the previous night, only for him to then tell her what he did. It's just a gorgeous character moment and a really good snapshot of a day in the life. When you are having this when you have been with somebody for a long time and you are dealing with these kinds of ups and downs, this is exactly the sort of shit that winds up happening. And I don't necessarily mean cheating. I just mean like, you know, people, each of them having totally different things that they're dealing with and totally different perspectives on what's happening right now. And each of them having their own reasons in the moment for like laying it on really thick. Both of them are trying to make it up to one another. But Paula isn't aware he has anything to make up for yet. You know, the whole thing. And I will say this for Scott. He tells her right away. I think that Paula is going to come around and she is going to want to work through this and take him back. But if she doesn't, I will think that's a mistake, personally. But I would really understand her position. Trust is not something that I give to people easily at all. For me, if I experience this kind of breach of trust from a partner, I might want to get past it. I might really mean it when I say I want to work through it and stay together. I don't know that I could do it. And I wouldn't really be mad at Paula if she was just like, I don't think I can. However, the fact that he immediately tells her that he is so fucking torn up over it, I think is a really good indicator that he basically acted out in an angry moment. That's what this was. He was pissed at her. There was another woman throwing herself at him, offering him all sorts of attention that she had not given him. Not an excuse. But if you think of being in that mindset when drunk, I can see how your judgment would just be really bad. And you could do something like this. And I think the fact that he comes right out the very next morning and tells her, I think that is an indicator that he would never, ever even think of doing this again. The problem, if you get there, if you do decide, all right, I believe you, I believe that you won't do this again, I believe we can move past this, is they work together. That's my problem. I don't want my problems with my partner at home to also be affecting our professional lives. It's bad enough to have something going on domestically, but if you have to then like deal with it every time you go to work, and who knows what the mindset is of, what is her name? The woman that he slept with? I think is it Tammy? Tanya, that's it. I hope that she is aware that this was a mistake. I hope that she knows that he thinks that, because if that's the case, you can sort of stay at your work and both of you be sort of hideously embarrassed, hopefully. I don't know if Tanya is married or not, and if she, also made a terrible mistake that she regrets, or if she has been sort of into Scott for a minute and she is hoping that he will leave his wife. That's the thing. And also, as a woman, I don't entirely trust that somebody like Scott would be able to tell. Tanya could easily tell him, no, it was just that one night. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I'm totally over it. I want to move on too. Yada, yada, yada. I think she could say that and not mean it at all, but fool Scott into thinking it. And he would tell Paula that. Also, not for nothing, Paula knows who Tanya is. I am waiting for next episode for her to do something. I don't know. I really don't know what I would do. Like the thing, whenever I have a storyline with infidelity that I have to cover, it's always so loaded because of the fact that I had an emotional affair while I was still married with Owen, who I am about to marry. So I know what it is like to have like a marriage where your needs aren't being met and you start looking outside of that because you feel lonely and unappreciated. But I did not have a physical relationship, and I don't really know what that's like. I can't really imagine that. And also in the position that I was in, Owen was not somebody that Brendan had met. He lived across the country. I wonder if Owen was someone that Brendan knew, if he lived in the same town, what Brendan would have done. And I wonder what I would do. Because as much as one can say, when you have a spouse that cheats or a partner that cheats, be mad at your partner, not at the other person. And that is totally valid. But, ¿por qué no los dos? Because they know that, in this specific situation, Tanya knows Scott is married and has met his wife. This is not the situation of a guy stringing along two women and neither of them knows about the other, and he's telling the girl that he's single and he's telling his wife he's faithful. This is a woman who is aware of his situation. And I feel like I would have to do or say something. Considering that TPing the house comes up this episode, I would not be shocked if next episode Paula decides that she's going to go TP Tanya's house. And honestly, as petty and childish as that is, I wouldn't be holding that against her, like, at all. That is sleeping with somebody's husband when you are aware of that whole situation. That's low. And I don't really like, I can't imagine had I like started talking to Owen and he was involved with somebody also, if I would have pursued any, like, it's one thing for me to fuck up my own life, but to be, it's just it's a weird, like, double standard, and it doesn't really make sense, and it's not really fair. But I definitely am kind of like, man, I don't know if I could do that. Meeting the person being the real clincher for me. It's one thing if you know somebody's married, but they're like a kind of a abstract notion. Yeah, he's got a wife, I guess. I don't hear much about her. I don't know her name, or I do, but it's, it's another thing to have like met the person a couple times. Clearly this event last episode is not the first time that Paula has met Tanya. So that for me is that, like, when somebody's really got a face, when you can picture them in your head, it takes on a different dimension to me, Anyway, I thought that this scene was really played super well when he admits to her what happened and her joking around with him and then realizing that it was serious and him saying it was an accident. That's the thing that for me would make me so furious. Admit that you made a fucking terrible decision, but don't call it an accident. An accident happens to you. You chose to do this thing. And he's explaining to her what happened. And she stops him. And her acting, gosh, she's so good, you guys. Oh, she is so good. When she starts to say, stop telling me. It sounds so romantic, like a night you'll never forget. And her eyes start to fill with tears. I love that she gets a hold of herself and the tears are still kind of there, but they're not there the way they were a second ago. She starts to lose it, but it's quickly overtaken by just rage. Like, and she tells him that she has to go, and he says, wait, we have to talk about this. And she says, no, I have to go. He says, okay, we'll talk about this when I get home. And she says, home? What home? You don't live here anymore. Her delivery of that line is just beautiful. That is like hammering the nails into the coffin, fucking echoing through the mausoleum kind of fucking end of sentence shit. That is a real punch to the gut. And then we see her going into work and her and Rebecca having this weird interaction in front of the coffee machine, each of them needing to kind of be in the same place. Rebecca eyeballing Paula, sort of like clearly waiting for an apology still. And then we get a wonderful moment of Paula going to the freezer and pulling out the ice tray, and it's empty. And then there's a second ice tray, and it's also empty. And she walks into the office and she screams, "Who did this? Who put an empty ice tray back twice? What man did this?" This show really gets it sometimes, guys. I doubt that there's a dude listening to this show. I have yet to have a guy that I have talked to who has seen Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. If you're listening, dudes, don't be this guy. And don't tell me you're not this guy. If you're not this guy, you don't need to say anything. You can sit there and know that and be smug about it. All you need to do is go into any relationship group, Reddit community, anywhere, anytime. And all you will get is this kind of straw that broke the camel's back moment from women who have been dealing with some guy's shit, and then they do something very small like this, and that's it. And a man will read these threads and be like, he didn't fill the ice cube trays. Are you seriously leaving him over that? And they won't see the 17 other issues she relayed over the course of the past 20 years. They won't get it. And my favorite part of this isn't even her line, what man did this. It's what's his face standing up, Steve Newland, Reverend Steve Newland, saying, it's hard. The water splooshes around. How am I supposed to open the door while I'm holding a shaky tray of water? Besides, somebody else always does it. Yo. This is the exact shit that guys say. I don't think I have ever met, and I'm not saying they're not out there, because I know for a fact that there are people who have like female roommates who do this kind of shit. But when it comes to relationships, this sort of thing is always the dude. It's like so rare that I have never personally met someone who it's flipped gender-wise. I'm sure it's out there, but it's just not common at all. When it comes to any domestic task, it's so frequently the dude who's just like, it just gets done. Somebody does it. You know that there's one other person living here, right? Are you aware of that? Do you know that you have not got fairies that just come over while you're at work? So, she goes into the other room, and she is with, thank you. Erica is telling me his name is Tim. Thank you, Erica. Tell me again, what's the name of this woman who doesn't talk, but who it turns out does talk? It's pretty great, actually. She gets a chance to talk. I really liked it. Paula is sitting in, Mrs. Hernandez, thank you, is sitting in the conference room with her. And Rebecca comes in and tries to tell Paula that she knows Paula is flipping out because of the stress of the two of them fighting. And does this fucking awful thing. Let's just stop all this foolishness and go back to the way things were. I'm willing to overlook all of the things on your end that you did wrong. You don't have to say it. You're sorry. Oh my God. I'm so happy that Mrs. Hernandez is here. Mrs. Hernandez screams at her, will you just shut up? You're just such a selfish, whiny, entitled brat. Just stop. I mean, look, she's not wrong. Oh, it's fine. You're too busy staring at the narcissist pond of your bewitching self to even notice. You're mean and poetic. And Rebecca tries to then be like, so Paula, what's going on? And Paula starts to tell her Scott is, and Rebecca interrupts again, gay. I knew it. I always knew it. I didn't say anything. That's on me. And when Paula says he slept with Tanya from work, Rebecca says, why would he have sex with Tanya if he's gay? this whole scene is just, man, this is so frustrating. So, and Paula says, it's what my father always told me, that if I ever tried to make something of myself, that no man would want me. The second that I try to pursue my dreams at all, my husband accidentally falls into another woman's vagina. And I really like this aspect of the mindset she's in. This didn't even occur to me that she would see it as like a sort of a manifestation of her choosing to put one of her own goals first. And I think that's really interesting. I wish that I knew a little bit more about what was going on between her and Scott before the show started, because we know that things weren't great between the two of them. Obviously, we saw the way that they were both sort of on autopilot. They were each in their own world. They were not like talking even, he was out here like doing his little rehearsals for his shows, and she was on her phone watching the video cam on Rebecca's chest, But I wonder, has she been supportive of things he's done in the past? And was this big slip out of character for her? Or is this a manifestation of something that he has felt from her for a long time, of her not caring about the things that he's interested in? Because there is a difference there, she definitely fucked up by not remembering, by being late, not listening. Don't get me wrong. But if she tends to be pretty good about this stuff normally, and she missed it this time because she's so wrapped up in her studying and her stress with her best friend, she fucked up, but it's very understandable. However, if he has felt like she doesn't support him most of the time, and she missed this, then that is a slightly different thing. And I wonder about, because, obviously going to law school, this is a new part of her life. And it sounds like she has not really had her own thing going on ever in their relationship. She's had her career. She's had the kids. Those have been her two focuses. Rebecca comes along and she focuses 100% in on Rebecca. But Rebecca's not her own thing. That's her living vicariously through someone else. If her husband has had the chance to have his own thing with his singing, and she has never had the opportunity, I really feel like him fucking another woman, it's already a huge mistake, but it feels even grosser if she has never really taken the time for herself to pursue something that is just hers, and then he does this when this has all just happened. It does feel like a pointed, like, resentment. I am mad at you for not being 100% about me and the kids anymore. And I know that this is probably me, like, reading into this way more than I need to be, but I just see things like this posted, with people like having a partner react to a thing. And you just need to know a lot more about their history together, and the way the dynamic has been between the two of them, and who has, we have this episode, her telling Rebecca how much Scott used to do a lot of stuff around the house, and now I am going to be all by myself. She says the morning rush had been like an Olympic event, but now it's going to be like the Hunger Games. So she really goes out of her way to let us know that he helps. But I have to say, I haven't seen that in other episodes. So it feels like the show is kind of trying to make it clear that he, like, isn't just dead weight, so that we feel keenly her needing him in her life a little bit more. When every time I have seen him, like, he has done some really good attempts at making dinner here and there while she's studying. He has been trying lately, but it hasn't been successful. It hasn't really felt like he's actually helping so much as being like a kid making a mess, pretending to help. And I sort of like, I think the show might realize that they made him a little bit too much of a buffoon, and they're trying to backtrack on that a little bit, because really when you come across a character like this, a sitcom husband who is not super helpful, who's a little bit clueless most of the time, you're tempted when the guy, like, when she decides to kick him to the curb because he's not pulling his weight, or because he does something like fuck a coworker, you're just like, well, good. You don't need him. Find somebody worth it. And I think the show is trying to give him more to recommend him so that we feel it a little bit more that he's gone. So anyway, we have this whole thing. It's really, Rebecca goes to her house and tells her, I am here to help. I am here to babysit your child. I brought food. I brought toys. I love how completely off she is about everything regarding caring for her child. And that she wants Paula to go on the, like, field trip with her class that she had been planning on, that she now feels she has to cancel because her husband isn't here. And Rebecca finally says, because Paula's like, girl, I can't deal with this right now. You got to go. I have shit to do. And Rebecca interrupts and says, Paula, I'm sorry. I was more wrong. I don't think about you the way that I should. I don't support you the way that I should. I am always thinking about myself, and I want to be here for you. Please let me do this for you today. And Paula finally takes her up on it, kind of tries to warn her, like, y'all, you don't know what you're getting into. And Rebecca, we have this amazing song. It's done in what I think is supposed to be a Bruno Mars-esque, right, kind of video style. And it's basically her as a woman who does not have kids. Not only does she not have kids, but she is single and has money. She's in like the ideal situation, talking about how easy it is to raise a child. This whole thing is so amazing. She like walks up to these women and takes their baby as they walk away, and these women join in on the like dance. And the whole thing is about how easy this is to do, how instinctual it is for her because she's a woman. And I love that when we watch what she's actually doing and she's singing this song to herself in the kitchen, she is banging on a banana with a hammer that she then wraps in a tortilla. I am dying to know what motivated that moment in the show. I mean, so, and then we have the podcast host who is talking to Rebecca, who is a super mom, one of the most incredible moms I have ever seen, even though you don't have any children. And obviously this joke is all about the fact that everybody who doesn't have kids thinks they know how to raise kids. They always have advice. They always are like, well, why don't you just do this? I don't get how come you think this is so hard when you could just do X, Y, Z. And I have seen that from the outside as a not parent, and been infuriated enough as somebody who does not also have kids. I can't imagine, if you are a parent, what it must be like to have somebody like, especially if there's somebody who has privilege of any kind, trying to tell you how to do your shit. I mean, just forget it. I would murder somebody over it. I know all too well. I mean, I have three friends who have had a child within the past year. And I mean, I have been hearing stories, and they're all trying to have a good attitude. They are trying. They really are. I'm not trying to say they're coming to me just being like, this fucking sucks. They love their kid. They love their partner. It's not like that's not still there. But you can hear how tired they are, and not just tired physically, but like they're tired of having to be positive. They're exhausted of having to make it clear before they complain every time that they really love their kid. I really do. But I believe you. You don't need to justify yourself to me. You can go ahead and rant about your child, and I will never, ever be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. That's your son. Never. Not even once in my life. Go ahead. And I feel really bad for how society just frowns on ever being able to admit it's hard and sucks sometimes. We just shit, especially on moms who have a really difficult time and insist that they constantly uplift their child and talk about how much motherhood is rewarding and beautiful, changes your life and makes you appreciate like, we want that story. We don't want to hear how thankless it is, how relentless it is, how there's never any breaks, how there's rarely any help. And it's just a symptom of our society not valuing the labor of women. It's just, the same shit. So anyway, I rather liked this. It was a little heavy-handed, but nevertheless. So then we see Rebecca 12 hours later, fucking disheveled and a mess. And she is trying to make like pancakes and attempting to do the like super breakfast thing. And she asks this kid, so what are we doing today? And he's like, you didn't make any plans? And she's very surprised because it's clear she was the kind of kid, as she puts it, you don't have baseball or soccer or improv. She was a kid who had way too many extracurriculars and always was scheduled to the fucking hilt. And this is not that kind of kid. So she is, she says, you tell me what you want to do. And he says, I want to try smoking and beer, and I want to see some naked boobs. They don't have to be yours, though. I love how this goes because he says that and she returns with Dora the Explorer, to which he's like, you really do not know how old I am, do you? And this is always something that I also struggle with. I wonder if you are like somebody that doesn't have kids and doesn't spend time around kids, if that's just kind of a universal thing, because I never fucking know how old children are. It is impossible for me to. There are kids that I would have said were like 8 or so, and somebody else tell me they're 4, and I'm like, they're what? And the opposite, as well. So I'm a disaster when it comes to that. So she says, I'll tell you what, we go get a bunch of popcorn and we watch whatever we want. And she goes to the grocery store and runs into Josh Chan and finds out that he isn't feeling well. Her reaction to this is very different from the scene that we see earlier between Josh and his girlfriend. And it is just, I can't believe how fast this happened, because I said last episode that I wanted Josh to get his heart broken so that he could get a taste of what it's like to lose somebody that you actually really care about versus what he has gone through, which is losing 2 people. I won't say that he didn't care at all, but it clearly was like a relief for him to be out of it versus something like this. And I didn't expect the very next episode for that to blow up. But we don't really deal with the fallout of it as much as, because it happens towards the end of the episode. But Anna says that she doesn't want him to kiss her because he might be contagious. And also that she has some other work thing, and so she can't come to his event, and he won't like tell her what it is. So when Rebecca sees him, she gives him a hug despite the fact that he's contagious. And he really seems kind of touched by the fact that she was willing to do that despite, you know, her health. And tells this kid that he's lucky to be hanging out with Rebecca. She's the greatest. Walks away, and then Rebecca, with her fucking obsession reignited. Oh, and by the way, in this grocery store, over her shoulder, there is a Miss Douche box on a shelf with Heather's face on it. Right, like, it's almost in focus, right over her shoulder. And I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it's hilarious. And she goes home and orders a chicken soup to be delivered to his house with this long fucking note. And it's really great because she takes too long to decide what the note's going to say. And that's what winds up leading everybody to figuring out who it was that sent it to him later. Because when he gets the delivery, the note got slid to the bottom of the bag, and it's like a plastic bag, and the soup kind of spilled, so it's all wet inside, and the note is totally illegible. But Josh understandably assumes that this was his really thoughtful girlfriend. And he posts a selfie on Instagram about it. And later on, she's like, I didn't do that. And she doesn't even know what he's talking about. But I'm like, that bitch would have seen his post. She would have texted him already about the fact that she didn't do that. There's no way she doesn't notice every Instagram tag she gets. But, oh, sorry. Erica says, did you ever see the SNL short with Kristen Stewart that was Duolingo for talking to kids? No, I haven't. Wait, maybe I did. That actually does sound very vaguely familiar. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, I actually do well talking to kids because I just talk to them like people. I don't try and be cute about it, which I think kids tend to appreciate. But when it comes to like figuring out what's appropriate for their age, I am not good with that sort of thing. Like figuring out what books are good for them right now, what movies they should be allowed to watch. I have like no frame of reference. But so she orders him this soup. He thinks it's his girlfriend. He tags her, and Rebecca sees it and is like, it is absolutely urgent that we let him know that I am the one who sent this to him. So then we cut to the event, and we see Heather signing Miss Douche boxes. It turns out that this is some weird, like, I want to call it like a convention type. I don't even know what this exactly is. But we have Hector and White Josh as the sort of like observers of most of what's happening in this nightclub, and it's great. I love the fact that Hector is the one that like White Josh asked for a really basic cocktail, and Hector brought him something extremely fruity with stuff like that. He was just like, what is this? Soju peach teeny. It's the most popular alcoholic drink in Korea. Get woke. So Josh comes up to them and tells them, tonight everything could change for me. Could be a real career move. He's very excited. He's very nervous. Neither of them have any idea what it is he's doing. And I was a little bit surprised about that he didn't tell anybody. But Josh is a little kid, and they like to surprise people with stuff. So I could see wanting to keep that to himself. We have Rebecca, who has apparently spent all afternoon getting a fake ID for Paula's kid. And the bouncer at the door just does not give a shit and lets them in anyway. And the fucking moment this cocktail waitress tries to bring Rebecca a cocktail and tells her that it's a soju, and Rebecca thinks that she's being anti-Semitic. I can't decide if that's a good joke or a terrible joke. It's one of those things that's like, it's not focused on. So maybe it's fine. But at the same time, I'm just like, what are we doing? What, really? So Rebecca spots Josh and she's about to go over and say something to him. And then she sees that he's there with his girlfriend. And for a second, I was like, why is she being so weird? And then I realized, of course, she met her already. And the girl thinks she's got a whole other name and like her whole cover will be blown. I forgot all about this. And she has to hide so that she is not spotted. She sort of like ducks at one point when the girl turns in their direction. And in that moment, Paula's son disappears. And she spends like half of the rest of the night looking for this kid. And it is brutal because who the fuck knows in a place like this where he's not even supposed to be what could have happened. And I know as a viewer, she's going to tell Paula and Paula's going to be like, oh, honey, I have so many stories. But this to Rebecca is her moment to make everything up to Paula. This is all hinging on one favor, their whole friendship as far as she is concerned. So I liked that because it would have been really easy for me to be like, oh, Paula's not going to care. She's going to understand. But having it be what it is gives it stakes that I understand from Rebecca's perspective. So I still felt urgent about it, even though I was certain it was going to be fine. I was like still very much understanding if I were Rebecca and I were like thinking this is the only thing that I have gotten an opportunity to do to prove myself and I'm fucking it up. It would be awful. You know, the anxiety from that would be so real. And I love that she does the like Yentl, like, Tommy, can you hear me? But so yeah, she, goes into the bathroom at one point and is telling Heather, who is there signing Miss Douche boxes, exactly what happened. And, you know, explaining how Paula is never going to forgive her. And they get interrupted by Anna coming into the bathroom and they have to hide in a stall. And I love that she pulls Heather into the stall to hide with her. She's like, they can't see me. They can't see me. But she doesn't think to just hide herself. She hides Heather too. So Heather, it turns out, is bringing Josh into the bathroom. And it turns out that they are going to fuck in here. This is one of those moments where I'm just like, this bathroom has a stall inside it. So you're fucking on the sink. But I'm assuming that door isn't locked. So you're just fucking on the sink. Go into a stall. For the love of God, there's got to be another one in there. And Rebecca, this is the second time that she is hidden in a bathroom and heard him fucking. We get to see a little peek, and I love this so much. His back is to Anna. And Heather, when she sees that, she goes, oh, he's nasty. Now I get it. Totally. Good for you, girl. Oh, Heather, I love you so much. So finally they leave and then we get the most embarrassing thing. It's time for the male models from the mall, scouted from local businesses. And of course, Hector and White Josh immediately twig to what's happening here. Anna doesn't get it at all and is like waiting for Josh to come back so that she can laugh at these models with him. Now, here's the thing. For me, as awful as these outfits are, as completely Ed Hardy-esque, I would still find this so charming and funny. If this were Owen, I would just be like, this is great. Oh my God, I love that you're doing this. Like, I would have a ball with this. because you're not taking yourself seriously, I'm assuming. I don't know, obviously Josh comes out and he means it. And that's what's so embarrassing, is the sincerity of it. And not only is he in this terrible fucking outfit, but he does the fucking like tearaways for the bottom and the sleeves. And I love how just the expressions that he's making, the blue steel sort of look he's trying to give everybody. And there are some girls for whom this wouldn't ruin everything. But we know who Anna is pretty well by now, even though she's only been in like an episode and a half. And she is exactly the kind of person who could not get past this. If you presented me with a figure out what makes Anna immediately want to dump Josh and be so unattracted to him, I don't think I could come up with anything that's remotely as good as this. Anything I came up with, it would be like really reaching. This is perfect. It is such a combination of tasteless and embarrassing, overly sincere, and like just so out of style as well, so off trend when that's like all her life is. And she makes a living by being on trend and knowing people who are celebrities, who are trendsetters, who are influencers. Somebody like Josh being attached to her could sink her. Like, honestly, that's not somebody you want to be associated with, So I if I were her and I had the kind of business that she has, I wouldn't even be letting him tag me on Instagram and stuff. I would just be like, I would have a really long period with new boyfriends where I'm like, you are not allowed to let anybody know, linking to my official business account, that we are together. So yeah, this is so, it goes on so long too. You keep thinking that it's over. He turns around and like walks away at one point, and all of them are like, okay, good. He's leaving. It's finally over. And then I love at one point, Hector is, he just can't help but burst out laughing. Oh God. And Rebecca, I don't think saw any of it, because I think she was so busy looking for Paula's kid that she missed all of it. And I really would have loved to see her reaction to this. I would really like to know what she would think. I think she would have been enchanted, because pretty much he's the kind of guy that can do no wrong for her. So Anna, at this point, tells Josh, I'm not feeling very well. I have to come home. She's trying to just get out of here. And he is not picking up her hints, and I'll go home and bring you some cough drops. We can take a bath together. And she finally says, you know what? I really was into you. And he says, I know, I remember the bathroom. And she says, but now my feelings changed. It's a thing that happens. And sometimes you really like someone, and then a switch gets flipped and suddenly you kind of feel like you want to barf. I'm so sorry. And I love how honest she is with him about this. I heart it. He asks, what flipped the switch? And she says, it might be when the sleeves zipped off. I'm not sure. Oh God, I feel really bad. And he says, so what are you saying? And she says, I'm saying we're over. And this is when he brings up, but you sent me chicken soup. And she's like, no, I definitely did not do that. And I'm sorry, but I really have to go. I can't deal with this at all. This is making me very uncomfortable. And I just appreciate that she doesn't like it. She's not even mean about it. Exactly. It could have been very easy to paint her as kind of a bitch here and have her just be like, that was ridiculous. You made a fool of yourself. You made a fool of me. I can't believe that you even considered this. you could have gone a whole other direction. Instead, she seems pretty reasonable. It's her, we all have the thing that we're like, I'm sorry, if this happens, I can't get past it. The switch flip, that's real. And it's weird how it happens. And I don't know how many of you have gone through that, but like, it is a very unnerving feeling to realize that something can change how you feel about somebody so completely and irrevocably. It makes you suddenly reconsider everything about what you feel towards people, because you're like, apparently I am so easily influenced. Oh my God. But I appreciate that Josh, for him, this is just coming completely out of nowhere, blindsided. And it's also all regarding something that he was really excited about and proud of. That's the thing that hurts the most here for me, is that he was like thinking that this could be a turning point for his career, was stoked to have kind of gotten put here. And it's the thing that leads to losing a girl that he has never felt this way about before. So his friends swoop in to kind of support him because they know immediately what just happened. And he's like, so somebody else sent me that soup. I don't know who sent me. How do I find out who sent me that soup? And kind of begins to obsess over that. He says, I was so wrong about Anna. I thought she was a nice person. She's not. She's a poo person. White Josh. Wow, Josh. Watch your mouth, okay, bud? So they track down the soup place and ask them, and they figure out that it was Rebecca. And this leads to a weird number that I have to admit I don't really get, where he figures out that it was Rebecca, and the whole song is like, that makes perfect sense. She knew I was sick, and she hugged me even though I was contagious. Oh my God. She's amazing. The both of them go, well, and it's always Rebecca, isn't it? And this light turns on wherever I turn. Everything points back to her. Duh. And the song is just duh over and over again. What was I thinking? It's like, duh. Guys, I have no idea what this is. Are they spoofing a specific song, or are they spoofing a genre? I did not get this at all. And there is something about the way this is lit that makes me think there's a specific music video that they're like making fun of. I just don't have any frame of reference for this. I don't know. And so, let's see. Erica says, I think it's spoofing Justin Bieber songs, but I've never heard any of his songs, so I don't know. Oh. I haven't, I'm sure I've heard songs of his, on, around, but I couldn't name a single song of his, actually, off the top of my head. And Josh singing a Justin Bieber-esque song makes total sense. So yeah, he is looking back at these moments with Rebecca, and there's like this weird flashback of very banal, not particularly romantic moments. And I really liked how quickly we go into him obsessing about Rebecca, because we already had an episode where it's pointed out to him that he is a serial monogamist, much like myself. He is always in a relationship. He doesn't really do well alone or even consider being alone. And, this whole thing blows up. It was a girl that he said he never felt this way about anybody. And less than 2 minutes after she has dumped him, he is already back in the Rebecca, what do we want to say? Camp? Pool? It's really on brand, incredibly on brand. So Rebecca finally goes home, well, to Paula's home, and it turns out that her son has come home, and he makes up a whole story about the day that they spent together and how it all went. And Rebecca appears to back him up, but then Paula starts to tell her how grateful she is and how much she trusts Rebecca. And you can see that Rebecca is on the edge of confessing everything to Paula. When all of a sudden, here comes Josh. And he is here to tell her that he wants to be with her and that he figured out it was her that sent the soup and it means something to him. It's everything that she has been wanting, and it's happening in the midst of a real heart-to-heart with Paula. And Paula, I love the way this show does this, guys. This could have been anything. They could have written it to be anything that interrupted the two of them. And Paula being like, I'm going to give you a second, you can go, it's fine, would have felt like her being a real martyr, like totally unbelievable. But it's Josh showing up and like declaring that he cares about Rebecca. This is literally the only thing that I buy her being like, no, go ahead. We're still friends, but yeah, go ahead. This is, as much as we just had a talk about this, as much as we are, discussing you being there for me, this is such a major thing that I will let you walk out of here, and I'm not even going to feel that bad about you leaving because it's so major. And of course, Rebecca has this moment, and I really thought, guys, even though I knew that like half the point of this episode was that Rebecca was going to try and do better, I had a moment of being like, is she going to backtrack? Because the show lets their characters backtrack. They don't shy away from, sometimes we try to do better and we don't. They let people fuck up. So if they had been like, no, she leaves, I would have been like, yikes, that sucks, but I get it. But instead, Rebecca tells Josh, this is everything I ever wanted to hear from you, but also, you have to leave. And she tells him, I'm a mom now, and I have other priorities. And I really loved this, both because this is her prioritizing Paula, which she needs to do, but also it's her not coming running back to Josh Chan the second that he snaps his fingers, which is good for him. He needs somebody who isn't all over him. Anna wasn't all over him, but she was like kind of all over him. So there were several aspects of this that I really liked. And I also appreciated the fact that he is undeterred and says that he's not going to forget about her and that he's going to keep working for it because that's what you should do, dude. So yeah, he's stepping out the door. I'm not going to give up on us. I'm not giving up on you. And she looks really happy to hear that. But I am going to get my car out of the parking lot because it closes at midnight. Hi, Paula. And Paula, when he leaves, goes, what just happened? And this is when Rebecca tells her the truth. Everything that your son said, none of that ever happened. It was all a lie. I brought him to a nightclub with a fake ID and he got lost and I couldn't find him. Which is just such an insane thing. And Paula is like, did he do drugs? Did he get drunk? He just got lost and then he came home. That's fine. One time I lost him for an entire weekend. He was living in a Barnes and Noble. He was so happy there. Oh, I love how much this show makes Paula a very intelligent, very competent woman, but they still make sure that her kids are a fucking disgrace and a nightmare. They're like, you know, you're not a bad mom. Sometimes shit is just terrible. You can't control everything. She did her best. So yeah, this, like, I love, she says, you decided to stay, even though Josh, you were here for me when I needed you, and could have sailed out the door with Josh, but you stayed for me, and you owned up to all of your mistakes and told me the truth about it. This is exactly what I need. And she says that's my brave little cookie. And it was just so sweet. You guys, I love their friendship, and I want them to be friends. And I like it. I just like it, okay? And then we end the episode with another bit from the parenting podcast. And Rebecca, like, there being another ad from the Truly Butter people, which I didn't feel played that well. It was fine, but it wasn't a great joke. They've done better. But that's fine. So the next episode was the one that was supposed to be the voyeur episode. And I mistakenly watched live the previous one because I was looking at the my calendar instead of the Spoil Me spreadsheet. So I am going to try my best to watch that one live. I'm going to check out let's see, today is the 1st. That is going to be on the 5th at 6 p.m. So what day is the 5th? Is that Tuesday, I think? Yes, Tuesday the 5th at 6 p.m. By the time this goes up, it might be too late though. But if it's at 6 p.m., I'll try and watch live at 5 p.m. is likely what I will do. So I'll put an alert out there and try and let all y'all know. But I'm really interested. I hope Owen's home for the next one. It was really fun to watch live with him. And thank you guys again so much for listening. Thank you to Megan for commissioning this, and to Erica for being in the chat and helping with me with names. And I will be seeing you all again pretty soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.